About 1 in 5 of us in this room has, or at some point in our lives will acquire, a disability or a difference. 1 in 5. It's a pretty significant number. Disabilities, rather than being the exception, are a typical part of the human experience. In my work, both as a former special education teacher and now as a researcher, I work with children with autism and developmental disabilities, primarily in inclusive school settings. For many kids, especially those in rural and underserved areas, schools are the only place where they have access to services and intervention to support their academic growth, as well as their language and communication, social development, and mental health. So, improving school-based services is essential in improving outcomes for these students and in reducing the disparities in access to vital supports that many of our children and their families face. In special education, we often talk about the research to practice gap, which refers to the chasm between what we know is effective and validated by research and getting those practices into regular use in schools so they can have a positive impact on students. In the field of autism intervention research, this gap is about 20 years. So it takes roughly 20 years from the time research reliably demonstrates that a certain practice is effective for children on the spectrum to that practice being filtered down into regular, everyday use in the classroom. That's nearly a whole generation of children growing up, going to school, and reaching adulthood without ever having had access to some of our best available instructional practices. At the same time, there has been a proliferation of low-value practices being used with autistic children in schools and communities. Not only do these practices lack evidence to support them, but some actually have a high potential for harm. So the question then is, how do we do a better job of getting evidence-based practices into schools? Well, this is a hugely complex issue, and I wish I had an easy answer, but I do have some suggestions. In my research, my team and I develop and assess interventions that aim to improve academic, social, and behavioral outcomes for children on the spectrum, with a particular emphasis on strategies that can be used effectively by teachers in real-world, everyday classrooms, rather than just in tightly controlled clinical settings. The focus shifts then from, does this intervention work, to how do we make this intervention work in your communities, in your schools, and with your students? We're particularly interested in the social validity of interventions, which considers whether a practice is effective in producing change, but it also considers whether that practice is even feasible to use in the classroom, if it's cost-effective, time and resource efficient, and can be implemented by teachers and other school-based service providers, rather than just members of highly trained research teams. These are all variables that will help encourage long-term, consistent implementation. Most importantly, we want to ensure that interventions are child-centered and fully informed by the unique characteristics, preferences, and experiences of each student. Research shows us that interventions lacking in social validity are not likely to be adopted and put into regular practice. Careful consideration of these contextual factors and partnering closely with students, their families, teachers, schools, and communities throughout all phases of the research process, from initial stages of development to classroom implementation to long-term assessment of outcomes, will help us develop better frameworks to move our research into real-world application and to improve the lives of children with disabilities. It shouldn't take a generation. Thank you.